Hello everyone and welcome to a second episode in the second series of Racing Weekly, a podcast and YouTube show brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. No surprise that the man to my left is once again Sam Turner. Sam, we've both been at Epsom recently for what I think was a wonderful meeting on the racecourse. What was your view?
Yeah, it was pretty breathless, wasn't it? And that wasn't just me, the 52-year-old asthmatic after the fireworks went off. No, it was great crack, really. I thought Friday was pulsating. Obviously, the Oaks was a great race. And then I think we saw a great horse on the Saturday with Desert Crown winning the Derby.
Yeah, and a few talking points off the racecourse, as well as very close
One or two.
To the racecourse as well. So there's quite a bit to chat about. Let's start off this episode of Racing Weekly with Racing Recap.
Tuesday, Emily Upjohn getting close. It's tight Tuesday. Tuesday has probably just won it. And this is going to be a career best for Hukum. Hukum right away and wins the Derby Coronation Cup. Desert Crown wins in sensational style, an easy winner.
And an obvious place to start is with the world's greatest flat race and Desert Crown's performance at Epsom in the Derby. As good as we've seen in recent times?
Well, as you've slipped me a 20 quid under the table, I need to mention that you put it up as your horse to follow this year.
Well,
bit of backslapping required.
Unfortunately, I didn't have as much as 20 quid on it.
You bask in the glory of finding the Derby winner in the darkest...
That's enough for me, just that glory.
The darkest months of the winter. Yeah, he was exemplary, wasn't he? I mean, beautifully behaved pre-race, unaffected by the fireworks, thankfully. Beautifully prepared, stepped forward from the Dante. You know, I thought that was a polished performance, but this took it to another level. The way that he just travelled through the race. Richard Kingscote, even from stall 12, could put him wherever he wanted in the race. The horse settled beautifully. Looks to have a absolute bomb-proof temperament and loads of class. You know, just took that race apart with that race-winning move from 3 out to 2 out. Richard very cleverly locked in Stone Age, locked in Westover, which, you know, some feel might have altered the result of the race if Westover had had a clear run, the way that he's finished off. Personally, I don't think so. I think the best horse won, but I think Westover emerges with tons of credit, obviously.
Rob Hornby was in the studio with us on Racing Weekly in episode 1, talking about the chances of Westover. As per usual, one or two people were a little bit, I think, dismissive of a horse who'd won the first trial, or the first significant trial after the Guineas for the Derby. And when you look back at Westover's performance, yes, I believe Desert Crown was the best horse in the race. The excitement for the season ahead for Rob Hornby, Rafe Beckett and the team, for what he could do this season. We'll come to Desert Crown obviously more in a moment, but of the placed horses, he stands out, surely. Yeah,
I think he's sort of a really good bet for the Irish Derby. I don't see any reason with a good draw why that track wouldn't really suit him beautifully. And that long, striding horse that he is should be well suited to the undulations or the configuration, rather, of the Curragh. I would imagine that's absolutely tailor-made for him. And then the St Ledger, of course, absolutely perfect further down the line. But I thought it was a great run. I thought he was a bit unfortunate with the draw. He's got locked away on the inside, and that's probably why Rob just hasn't got the run that he wanted at the pivotal moment when Desert Crown was quickening and accelerating. Westover was locked up.
Andrew Balding, a very good day for him and his team, second and fourth.
Incredible. Typically self-deprecating, said that the second only ran because the owner wanted to run him. Yet another huge price placed horse for the owner in a classic.
Was second to Serpentine.
Just extraordinary, really. A great run from him. Those who back Nation's Pride will be a bit disappointed because obviously he hammered Julia Mal by 7 lengths at Newmarket.
Yeah. Nation's Pride, Stone Age, two biggest disappointments of the race?
Yeah, right up there. Thought the other Godolphin, Walking the Stars. Yeah, he was awful, wasn't he? He got beat 30 odd lengths. Something must be amiss with him. Yeah, and I thought the Ballydor horses, Star of India, I thought he'd run well. But just faded out of it from the home turn. Really disappointing effort from him.
Of course, one of the big talking points of the Derby was the 6th win in the race for Sir Michael Stout. At the age of 76, he becomes the oldest trainer to win the great race. It's 41 years after Shergar. And
you weren't even born.
No, gosh, I'd only heard about it when I was eventually born.
Very convincing that was, Rich.
But there was a great deal of affection for him at Epsom on Saturday.
Tons.
And even though he's quite reserved with his emotions, it did just touch him.
Yeah, I think both after the Dante at York, when Lydia spoke to him for Racing TV, you could see there that there was a lot of affection and warmth between the two of them, and I think he responded to that. And certainly again, when Lydia managed to cop him on Saturday, and he just gave us a little glimpse, turn the spotlight onto his emotional side a little bit more, because he's usually a guy a little bit like the winning rider. Richard Kingscote plays very straight bat. He's happy to leave the few deliveries outside off stump and not sort of flail away and try and hit one through the covers, and he's just they're both very pragmatic, understated characters, and I think they gel well together. There's a good synchronicity between the two, and you could sort of see why Sir Michael has reached out to Richard Kingscote after Ryan Moore. I'm not saying Richard's in the same level just yet as Ryan Moore, who's obviously an exemplary rider and one of the best in the world, but just their calmness and their pragmatism through races, they just don't panic, and I think Sir Michael likes that.
Yesterday, or on Saturday morning before the Derby, a lot of people were talking about how much of a guessing game trying to find the winner of the Derby is, because it's all unexposed 3-year-olds. But one of the things I felt, and I'm sure a lot of other people thought the same thing, is the one thing you didn't have to guess was that Desert Crown was going to improve from the Dante to the Derby. That's Sir Michael Stout's modus operandi. In fairness, that would be the majority of trainers with young horses of that. But the other thing we will know, regardless of where this horse goes in the future, you're pretty confident that despite the fact that he's won the Dante and the Derby in his first 2 runs of the season, it's going to still be better to come from this horse, isn't there?
Yeah, I think Richard Kingscote made a very salient point, that he said it took sort of 9 runs for Brown Panther to get to 118. It's taken this horse 3 runs to get to 117 with the potential, the big P. He'd have the big P, wouldn't he? He's probably just about learning quite how good he is, Desert Crown, and the way that he's sort of moved through that race on Saturday. He was a winner at a mile and a quarter, he was a winner at a mile and a half, and only good horses really have got that change of gear to take a race apart like he did.
Yeah.
That separates the good horses from the brilliant ones, doesn't it? And, one of the best Derby winners I think we've seen in years. I know there's an element of recency bias, but just that move from 3 out to 2 out. And, there'll be people who are decrying the form. There's a 150 to 1 chance in second, there's an 80 to 1 chance in fourth, or whichever way around it was. But the first Derby I saw live, Nash won, beating Terramon and Cacoethes, Greville riding away in third. Terramon was 250s and
500
it's
to
been
1.
500 to 1, yeah. So he didn't turn out to be too bad a horse either, did he, Terramon? So it just pays just to let the race work out first before you come up with a big opinion.
Yeah, I think odds are perhaps not the best guide to a race form. But odds do help us, I guess, look forward to some of the races later in the season. And with regards to Desert Crown, the way he has moved through his 2 races so far suggests that he would be equally as good at a mile and a half as he would be over 10 furlongs. Yeah. Therefore, whether it's the Juddmonte International, for which he's, I think, around 4 to 1.
He might be a shade shorter now with
3 to 1, bet 365. 5 to 2 for the Arc.
Yeah.
Those options are indeed on the cards, and that's quite exciting from
it is, especially when you think what might line up against him on the Knavesmire. I like his Juddmonte claims because he's actually got proven form at York. I think that's quite important as a tipster, punter, whatever.
Even if he bumps into Baid.
Well, that's the issue, isn't it? That is the issue. But yet Baid's still got to prove that his optimum trip is a mile and a quarter. He shows blistering speed, good acceleration, as does Desert Crown. But by See the Stars, Baid, you would imagine that a mile and a quarter on a flat track like York, fair track, he should get that standing on his head, really. So it is difficult to try and evaluate between the two. But who knows where Desert Crown might be, when we're moving into August, how much improvement he's made, where his graph is. I just think it's great to have some exciting sort of middle distance horse, milers, mile and a quarter, mile and a half horses to talk about, really.
So if at this stage you had to look for horse, and we will obviously talk about a couple of other Group 1s over a mile and a half at Epsom last weekend, but if you had to pick a horse for the Juddmonte International right now, it would be Desert Crown over Baid?
Yeah, probably, because A, it'd be a better price, B, he's got proven York form, and York isn't for everyone. Some horses just do not enjoy the place.
And he's getting weight.
He's getting weight, and he might not be far behind Baid on official ratings. Where he goes next, I'm not sure. I wouldn't have thought the Irish Derby's particularly his race, but King George's might be.
It was interesting listening to Bruce Raymond, who's racing manager to the owner of Desert Crown, Saeed Suhail, in the lead up to the Derby, speaking about the fact that this horse might be better at 4, might even be better at 5, and that was from the racing manager. Now, we have no idea whether he'll be in training at 4 or 5, but to hear those words, the fact that he's also trained by someone who I can't begin to count the number of times the cliche, Sir Michael Stoute is very good with his older horses.
Yeah.
That's an exciting prospect.
Well, it is great, and it's great he's got a sporting owner, because you could fully understand, like say he had a brilliant year at 4 and won $1.5 million, won a top race, won an arc perhaps or whatever. That is nothing compared to if he covers 100 mares,
yes.
50, 60,000 a pop, what he's going to bring in revenue.
Yeah.
Okay, you understand that the owner might not be short of a tenner, which is lovely for him, and he might be more of a sporting man, and he might want to carry on campaigning, and that horse is in exactly the right hands for that sort of campaign, isn't he?
Yeah. So Desert Crown to win the Juddmonte and potentially the Arc, Westover to win the Ledger and potentially the Irish Derby as well. So
well, yeah, I mean the thing with Desert Crown as well, he doesn't mind soft ground in the back end, does he? Because he absolutely sluiced up at Nottingham.
Yes, he's got all boxes ticked, as they say. Now the Fillies Classic, the Oaks. Not quite, more drama, I'd say, than obviously the Derby itself.
Yeah.
And not quite a clear-cut winner in the end, even though there would be quite a lot of people who would say that Emily Upjohn was the best horse in the race, but things conspired against her. What was your immediate impression as they crossed the line?
Yeah, I thought they both were superb. To be honest, I think we saw two good quality fillies there, and they paid a handsome compliment, of course, to Homeless Songs, who beat them both pointless in the Irish Guineas. So it was nice to see that race starting to work out well. Obviously, Tuesday had an awkward draw.
Yeah.
We've perceived that the one box isn't the place to be, although Adéa won the Derby last year out of there. It could be the lucky box now going forward. So, she was locked away on the inside, albeit in a relatively small field.
Yeah.
Emily Upjohn obviously has done well to maintain the partnership, didn't he, Frankie Dettori, with her, the way she stumbled coming out the stalls. And you can't give 6 or 8 lengths away and hope to win a classic unless you're unbelievable. But take Tuesday out of the race, and that's exactly what Emily Upjohn has managed to do. The sectionals that they both record off slow, early pace were phenomenal. Much better than anything that the Desert Crown, the Derby winner, or the Coronation managed to achieve. Yeah. But that was, in fairness, that was because they went a slow early gallop. But then quickening into a slow early gallop is not easy either, but the way that the two of them have come clear of a really good filly in Nashua, a really good solid yardstick in Concert Hall, who might not have handled a trap but still ran a perfectly admirable race, I think it marks them down as two really high-class fillies.
Now, I think because of what happened at the start with Emily Upjohn, I think everybody, Frankie Dettori said he couldn't wait for a rematch because with a clean break and clear sailing, he felt his filly would have won. A lot of people obviously felt that way. But watching the race again, as they turn into the straight, they get to about the 3 furlong pole, 2.5 furlongs out. Emily Upjohn is actually ahead of Tuesday, and Frankie travelling well. I know that obviously what has transpired in the early part of the race is all contributing late on, but I wouldn't want to take too much credit away from Tuesday.
No, me neither.
Wouldn't be adamant that Emily Upjohn would definitely be superior to Tuesday in future.
Emily Upjohn clocked the fastest furlong time in the race.
Yeah.
So she has got that acceleration. I think both of them could win over 1.25 miles at a very high level. But yeah, I think Tuesday's in danger almost because of the early race shenanigans of being forgotten in the race, really. And it's worth bearing in mind that you take Emily Upjohn out, she's a very impressive winner, beating a nice Gosden filly in second. So no, I think it's form. I think it's decent form. I think the front two are definitely worth following over a cliff almost.
Aidan O'Brien, 41.
Not bad, is he?
41 British Classics. That is quite a staggering number of victories. I think that was a 10th win in the Oaks for the master trainer.
Yeah.
When you hear the figure 41 and you think about the fact that how many likely more classics he's got in the bag?
Well, it's interesting that obviously we didn't have any fireworks before the Oaks. We hadn't before the Derby. His 3 Derby runners didn't run particularly well. So I think John Gosden and Sir Michael Stoute will be paying Newmarket to set up a few fireworks before the Guineas next year, won't they? And see if they can See if they can pull him down a peg or two. But he's not bad, is he,
Fireworks
the
to
fella?
come later on in the show.
Yes, obviously. But he's pretty useful. How long before he gets a statue at Epsom? I mean, it's just astonishing. His numbers are incredible.
Yeah.
He's my age as well, which sickens me because he looks about 37. And, you know, I had a couple of hard paper rounds. But, I mean, the man's got so much pressure on his shoulders.
Yes.
And look at him. He's very serene, isn't he?
Yeah.
The horses are pretty serene as well. They're very relaxed in the races. They go to Epsom. You know, you see one or two horses getting warm, sweaty down the start. Never usually a Ballydor horse, is it? They're exemplary the way that they behave. Pays, you know, he saddled them all in the middle of the parade ring as well yesterday, didn't he? Didn't go in the boxes with them. They all have two handlers. Just all the finer points and those little 1%ers, as the sporting psychologists like to say.
Yeah.
He takes care of all those things. So they're beautifully trained, they're beautifully bred, and they're usually beautifully ridden by a brilliant team of jockeys. So it's no wonder he's had 41 classic winners.
But 41 in the space of about 25, 26 years. The likelihood is he might double that tally at some point if he keeps...
Well, that's scary, isn't it? That is scary. Because you don't, you know, he's a relatively young man at 52, and so you don't see it.
Well, so Michael Stout, 76.
Exactly. You know, and you can't see the wheels coming off, can you? I mean, obviously we haven't got Galileo anymore, but we've still got grandsons of Galileo finishing first and third in a derby.
Yeah.
So, you know, that line lives on, and Kumar aren't daft, are they? They'll manage to locate the deep
Absolutely.
impacts of this world, the Japanese bloodlines, which are doing well at the moment.
The horse that finished third in the Oaks, Nashwa, a lot of people actually fancied her to win. She has looked very good. A lot of history chat about Holly Doyle, etc. I thought she ran a fine race. But I would like to see her dropping back to 10th. I thought the Nassau would be up her street. What's your feeling about that?
No, absolutely. That looks a nice fit for her. Albeit the track might not see it a great effect. I do think she looks, you know, quite a nice, well-balanced filly, but I wonder whether more of a speed track. Yeah. You wouldn't mind seeing her in a Juddmonte, would you? You know, she'd travel away in that, be a bit of sporting.
What a race that's going to be.
Sporting play, yeah, they'll all end up in it, won't they? Yeah, I thought she ran a really nice race. I just didn't think that the third and the fourth looked particularly at home on the track. I wouldn't give up on Concert Hall either. People say she's not the biggest, etc., but I still think over a mile and a half, probably around the Curragh in the Irish Oaks, I still think she might run a big race.
Yeah, Road Millennium gave us something to shout about when she hit the front or near the front.
Absolutely.
2 furlongs from home, ran out of petrol.
Yeah. But she was there with a live chance, wasn't she? I bet you were getting excited, weren't you?
Definitely. There was a moment where they were coming down the hill and Jack gave her a little squeeze and she just went forward, and then he had to take her back because she was getting there too quickly. And she ran a great race.
Nassau for her?
I think she might need a little bit of a rest. Jack felt she was a bit tired at the end of it, so hopefully give her a little bit of a break. She's had those 3 runs in a short space of time. It's less than, what is it? She made her debut at the end of April, so you know, less than 2 months since she first ran. So a little bit of a break.
Her education's been crammed into quite a
hopefully she'll
tight period, hasn't
it? She'll freshen up and come back better later in the season. The other Group 1 at Epsom was the Coronation Cup. I guess the main story of that race was it's a first Group 1 win for Owen Burrows. Yeah,
I was delighted for him, really. I tipped and backed Pile Driver, and I think he was put in his place fair and square. I thought it was a great manoeuvre from Jim Crowley to sit on the sit on the heels even of Frankie Dettori.
Sealed the deal.
Yeah. He did seal the deal. Thank you for that. And to see Hukum quicken away, you know, he did 2 furlong sectionals of around 11 seconds, which blew the race apart, really. Yeah. People said it was a muddling race and stop-start tactical affair. It wasn't really. They were 10 to 12 lengths quicker than the Oaks for the first 4 furlongs, so they went a genuine pace. I think the Johnson horse dropping out the stalls and the fact that High Definition didn't want to lead meant that it became a little bit of a messy race. But I thought Jim Crowley's manoeuvre was the classic one, because he sort of took Manobo's spot and sort of it compromised his chance a little bit, and it also compromised Pile Driver because he always had that pressure on his near side. Yeah. But Hukum sealed the deal with a really good sparkling turn of foot, I thought.
Yeah, we've had the pleasure of chatting to Jim Crowley about the ride in the race, and it was interesting hearing his thoughts on it. He said when they came out the gates and he's got his eye on Frankie and he saw Frankie going ahead, wasn't sure whether William wanted to be as far forward on Manobo, and then he said he spotted that William wanted to sit just outside Frankie on Pile Driver, and he thought, I want that position. So he used up a little bit of juice on Hukum, gets across, takes Manobo's position. Manobo has to drop back. Hukum's got position A, and he had the horse underneath him to go on and do the job. Yeah,
there was 3 or 4 instances I thought of really good race riding at Epsom over that couple of weeks. I thought, obviously, the Derby winner, Richard Kingscote, had enough horse in him just to keep everything locked up between the 3 and the 2 to his left-hand side. Frankie Dettori on Magellan. And I thought Jim Crowley really... I don't know whether it made the difference in winning and losing, because Hukum was such an impressive winner anyway that he might well have won however that race transpired. But it certainly put the seal on it.
Yeah, you mentioned obviously some of the rides and outside the big races as well that taken your eye. Was there anything equine performance-wise at Epsom outside of the big 3 races, or indeed within the big 3 races that we haven't spoken about yet that you thought might be...
I thought one of the rides of the weekend was the ride on the dash from Barry McHugh, how he got out from 10 and got the near side rail. I thought that was astonishing. And that was a very fitting winner, wasn't it? 5 years to the day that Dandy Nichols had passed and his son was turning up and winning the dash. I thought there was a real
20 years after his son won the race for Dandy on Rudy's Pets.
Yeah, that was astonishing how that worked out. So it was quite an emotional weekend really, because Sir Michael Stout's win, and obviously he's lost his long-term partner and much loved Coral. And you know, obviously Trotter, you know, following his father's footsteps, that was a magnificent win in the dash. Yeah.
The other riding performances of the weekend, and in fact, you could almost any point of the flat season so far. Tom Marquand, he won the Princess Elizabeth on Bashkarova, and I think it'd be fair to say that whilst there are other jockeys riding very well at the moment, I'd be surprised if you could find a jockey riding better than him.
Yeah, I don't want to admit to this, but I've got a bit of a man crush for Tom Marquand. Sorry, Tom.
Sorry, Holly.
Well,
because you don't want to be up against Sam in a love affair.
I just say he's I was going to say the perfect package. That sounds wrong as well. Apologies. Can we cut that out?
No, leave it in.
I just some males and female will qualify that statement.
Where is this
I'm
going?
digging deeper here, aren't I? Give me a shovel.
Should we start this again? You've got a man crush on
Tom Marquand, yeah, and some males and females
package.
just look as though they were built to ride a horse. And Tom is the only. Well, I'll say the only previous one. Ryan Moore is another example. Yeah. Holly Doyle's probably a very good example as well. Holly, if you're listening and watching, I do love you too. But I think Tom Marquand has just got every attribute you need as a punter or a tipster. Strong, tactically very sound. Makes a few mistakes. But there's some brilliant riders in the weighing room at the moment. I think some really good ones. David Probert is improving. Yeah. Week on week. Rob Hornby we touched on about. Richard Kingscote, you know, he's not a young man, but you know, he's gone up a different level, hasn't he? Yeah,
and it's actually there was a while where you thought maybe there might be a dearth of very elite riders, but suddenly Tom's come forward enormously. Holly Doyle's come forward enormously. You've mentioned obviously Richard Kingscote, Rob Hornby. We've actually got a great strength and depth at the moment, I think, amongst the flat riders, and certainly better than it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So Frankie's still up there. Ryan Moore's still up there. You know, over in Ireland.
Kieran Fallon's.
Yeah. Colin Keane in Ireland.
Yes.
You know, like Chris Hayes, and there's so many. There's still the older guys. Still
Dylan McGonigal. And we've got some good young talent coming through as well. Obviously, Benoit de la Sayette is finally realising that talent. Harry Davis is making some good lads. One or two that I got. Ryan Sexton, that just off the top of my head, we're missing out names left, right, and centre. But there's some very polished riders.
Ryan Sexton seems to have won a lot of professionals over. If you ask anyone. Within the weighing room or people who watch racing every day, go racing every day, and you say, give us a name of the young riders to follow. A lot of them say Ryan Sexton. And they talk about his mental approach more than
I think that's half the battle when you're a top jock, isn't it? And, you know, we're lucky enough to speak to Richard Kingscote. And just having that mental capacity to, if you jogged off one or if you give one a bad ride, park it, move it, you know. And then Rob Hornby was the same. You know, when we spoke to him last week, really, just quite a phlegmatic, pragmatic approach and not getting too down on yourself if you make a mistake and just move on and, okay, there's another ride, there's another race.
It's normally a very obvious question to ask, but at the end of 2 days at Epsom, most people, if you ask them for the one thing that stands above everything else, would it be Desert Crown, would it be Richard Kingscote, Sir Michael Stout, Tuesday, Aidan O'Brien? if I asked you to name one thing that stood out above all the activities at Epsom, what would it be?
Fireworks.
Well, that then
They were
moves
great,
us
weren't they?
nicely onto our next subject on Racing Weekly, and that is talking topics. And so the first subject of talking topics is indeed fireworks. Now, for anyone not entirely familiar with what happened, in the lead up to this year's Kazoo Derby, just moments before the race, there was of course a little bit of kerfuffle going on with a few protesters. That was quickly dealt with and moved aside. And then whilst that was being dealt with, suddenly, bang, fireworks. Just a few moments. The runners are down at the start, composing themselves before the big race, and then we get fireworks.
Yeah, it's the last thing a man of 52 with a dodgy ticker wants to hear behind him. To be honest, I must have leapt about a foot in the air. Strange decision, I thought. Unneeded, unnecessary. I think I said to you off air that I wouldn't have thought there'd be anybody who'd walk off that track if we hadn't have had any fireworks and go, do you know what we needed? We need a really good firework display today. That's just what we wanted. Just baffling. Just a baffling experience for all concerned. And I could almost half understand it if they were just red, white and blue fireworks, obviously, given the occasion. But there were all sorts of different colours, so it just looked like a random selection of fireworks that just let off the top of the stand. Not to mention the fact that you had smoke cascading across you for a couple of minutes afterwards. And the one or two people getting sort of showered in the gunpowder.
Yeah, it was debris of the fireworks as well.
Yeah, it wasn't clever, it wasn't great. And I spoke to somebody from the Jockey Club and they said, look, we have tested this, we have road tested it. We've had people over the other side where the stalls are for the 1.5 mile start, and they, it didn't affect various things. I don't know whether they had horse, and they asked the horse, could you hear the fireworks? I'm not sure if they went to that level.
Why would you want to road test fireworks is the question. I would have thought there must be at least 2 or 3 better ideas than fireworks before the start of the Derby.
Fanfare, they got the band there. They were brilliant. There was, I said to you, there's plenty of sort of pomp and pageantry, and it felt the whole day had gravitas. But why, read a bit of Kipling out over the airwaves or something. Do something like that. But the fireworks just. They used to do it at Maidan in the middle of the car, didn't they? Before the
they used. It was within an hour's opening ceremony.
But you never had horses down at the start, did you? I just found it baffling. It was just. I don't think there was anybody I spoke to that thought it was a good idea.
No, I'm hoping that whoever is in charge of the Derby next year will review and think fireworks.
Seem to be doing a lot of reviewing lately, whether it be white trainers. In certain enclosures or fireworks or we seem to be doing a lot of reviewing and thinking that wasn't a great idea. We just seem to be finding lots of ways to shoot ourselves in the foot in a white trainer foot.
Anyway, I'm only laughing because it's can't we?
Do you think I'm going to get into a Jockey Club racecourse anytime soon? Sorry guys.
Not Sam. No, he's no good for that.
Where's your normal phone?
I've lost it. Another big chatting point during Epsom was ground.
Yeah.
I think on the first day of the meeting, slightly surprised that jockeys shunned the rail, and then the fastest strip was down the middle of the course, and even on Derby day, there was an element of feeling that you wanted to be again off the rail, even though there was
Frankie Dettori didn't think so, did he?
He didn't.
Magellan,
but
that played out quite well for him.
But in the Phillies race, for example, they came primarily down. No one wanted to go down to the rail.
No, it was just, I don't know, a bit baffling really. But plaudits to Andrew Cooper, because that track isn't easy to maintain good, safe ground on, and he did an exemplary job, didn't he? I don't think anybody moaned about it. I think there was a great lush covering of grass. He'd put some water on early week. We didn't know what the forecast was going to be. I was getting to Epsom probably 2 or 3 hours before racing, and literally 10 minutes from the track, there were puddles everywhere, and it was just, you thought, if they've got this is going to significantly change it. They had 1 millimetre. Yeah. So this is the job, the invidious job that some clerks of the courses have to face, trying to read a forecast. And he said, early on in the week, the forecast was telling me it could be anything up to an inch. So it is difficult, but he produced beautiful ground. I don't think anyone complained about the ground. It suited horses. The horse we just mentioned, won the Princess Elizabeth, wants a bit of cut in the ground, pivotal. And
over,
and there was 1 or 2 horses that probably want top of the ground, and they cope fine as well. So horses let themselves down on it, I think.
Yeah, getting the ground right is not easy.
No.
You and I know very little about geography. Do you know much about geography?
No. Track husbandry, grass growth, no.
No, nor do I.
But that's why I always check social media, because there's plenty of people
They
who
know,
do.
so always check social media if you need to know anything for expert advice.
Yeah.
But obviously it brought up another subject, talking about the ground at Epsom. On Friday at Catterick, there was another inspection because of horses slipping on a bend, and obviously in the week prior to Epsom, we had Beverley, Haydock, Chester, Lingfield, all with abandonments because of slipping bends, etc. So
unprecedented, really.
Where do we stand at the moment, and who knows what's going on? Because obviously we won't have a clue because we're not experts in that field. Mind you, it doesn't stop having opinion, but
no.
What's going on?
I think the problem is we've had quite a dry spring, haven't we? So there probably hasn't necessarily been the deep grass growth that you would normally expect. So the traction isn't necessarily there. Obviously, if we have a little bit of a wetter spring as well, the ground retains more moisture. See, I sound like an expert here, but I'm winging this, Rishi.
It's like you're reading social media.
Which then means if they do water, you're going to get that bit more traction. At the moment, I would suggest on some of the tracks, there isn't that much moisture the further down you go. And of course, a little bit of rain, or we have a cold night. I think that's some of it as well. You know, you get a dewy night and whatever. It doesn't always dry out by the time race time comes around. It's very greasy on top. Yeah. So I know in Ireland they do like to water the bends. You know, if they have the similar sort of situation, I think that might be something we have to look at quite seriously, really. And look, if the bends are good to soft and the rest of the track's good to firm, so be it. Jockeys have got to have utmost confidence in going around a bend at 35 miles an hour, and the half a ton of horse flesh underneath them have got to be able to get traction.
So you think it's as simple as that? Or I was at Newbury last week and just sort of mooted to a couple of people there saying, just to be on the safe side, it might be worth taking a couple of the senior jockeys out, walk the course beforehand. And I was informed that were the clerk of the course to walk with any of the jockeys on the course together before racing, that would constitute an inspection. It would obviously have to be announced. So.
We'll change the rules then. Or go for a run with the jockeys. You know, clerk of the courses will be the fittest men in the weighing room, won't they, soon, or in the steward's room. But go for a run with the jockeys. I mean, I mooted a daft point to you, but I don't know whether it would ever even be taken on board. But there's enough people who want to go and have a racecourse gallop and a day away, don't they? So, you know, whether it be Nicky or whoever it might be. Yeah. And, you know, places like Newbury or Haydock or wherever it might be, you know, have a work. Yeah. Or a couple of horses work before racing, an hour before racing or something. And then if there are a couple of senior jockeys are riding them in the work, or work riders, and they're happy with the ground, that's great. Yeah. You know, if there's not, you've got an hour then to do some remedial work, whether it be sanding or whatever it might be, re-railing, or, you know, whatever the clerk of the course chooses to do. Now, there is an expense involved with that. You've got to put another horse on the horse box. You've got to get somebody to ride it, and you've got to get people that you trust that would. But at least it might alert
it could be
to an issue.
Fair, I don't think it would be that bad, because surely it's economies of scale. That there are boxes going to the races, and you know, the jockeys are going to the races anyway, so costs can be built in there anyway. Do you think this is another subject for review in racing?
I think so. I think we need a root and branch review. See what I did there?
I like what you did. Root, especially.
Yeah. Oh, what a man.
Yeah. Okay.
Another man crush.
Anything you want to tell the camera?
No.
Perfect package.
Yeah, well, he is, isn't he? You know, what a man. Joe Root.
Joe Root or Tom Marquand, if you had the choice?
Oh, Root for his hair, I think.
Wow.
He's got a fantastic head of hair, hasn't he?
If it's as simple as having a head of hair, then
yeah, I've been single too long, haven't I? Here.
Well, I was thinking there'd be a bit more depth to you, Sam.
Yeah.
Unfortunate.
A bit like the roots on racecourses.
A bit more root and branch to your your sentiment.
Should we quit while we're behind here? Yeah. Next.
Was there anything else over the last week or so in racing? I mean, we keep talking about, one thing that came up recently was the subject of prize. An owner in the last week or so spotted a horse that, obviously one of their horses, and a tweet went out about a horse that finished place in a race, won a chase race, all in the space of 8 days, and the owner won the syndicate won £2,400 but ended up with zero at the end of it.
Yeah,
because
after all
of
the
costs
expenses and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I'm afraid that is the landscape as it is. I've owned enough bad horses to realise that, you know, there's only one way that your account goes, unless you have a right touch. Most people will have average horses in training, I think, probably A, to have a bet, B, because they like to go racing and see their horses. And that's why these micro ownership groups are really good. You know, for a small figure that you just write off, you can still get to go racing and you still feel a part of the action, really, even though you probably earn 0.01% of them.
Right, that's enough chatting about things gone.
Right.
Let's finish off by finding a horse that ran at Epsom in particular over the Platinum Jubilee celebrations, and obviously we send our very best to the Palace.
Yes,
from
absolutely.
Racing Weekly. It's very important.
Disappointed
that
disappointed that Her Majesty wasn't at Epsom.
I think she was watching. She was
Do
watching.
you not think she'd nip down to Worcester to see Nico boot one home?
I think she as long as she can get onto her accounts in the right place, I don't think she matters.
Apparently, she's an honoured subscriber of Racing TV. Apparently,
Of course she is. Of course she is. Would she not have watched ITV on the weekend?
No.
I don't know.
no. Oh.
So one horse out of Epsom that you, me, Her Majesty, and the rest of the nation can back in the future as a surefire winner.
Mr. Wagyu in the Stewards Cup.
Wow, Mr. Wagyu.
Yeah, wait till the last race on Saturday.
Yeah.
I think what John Quinn and Sean Quinn and the team there have done with Mr. Wagyu is just little short of astonishing, really. 16 runs. That's more than our openers have accrued in 12 months. Last year, 16 runs, and it hasn't taken him long to hit top speed again.
Yeah.
I know he was probably screaming out for the line at the death as full authority thrust it at him late on, but he won the consolation, didn't he, last year?
Yeah.
I think he's ready to step up and be a man this year.
All right. Mr. Wagyu, the perfect package for Sam Turner. That is it for this episode of Racing Weekly, brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. As usual, thank you very much to my main man, Sam Turner, for embarrassing me and himself over the last few minutes. We look forward to more of that in the future. As always, if you liked what you've heard or watched in this episode, then please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or in the comments section on YouTube. We look forward to more embarrassing moments for both Sam Turner and Rishi Persad next week.